I can tell the storm to be still and give me peace. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So look at somebody and say, just do it. The problem is we don't like to be obedient to what God is telling us to do. See, you got to understand that after Peter had failed, after Peter had stumbled, after he had messed up and blew it, dropped the ball, he still knew enough to be obedient to somebody that was greater than him. And watch, obedience don't always work the first time. You got to have enough faith to be obedient until the storm is done, until the blessing arrives, until favor comes your way. See, we want that if we follow God the one time, if we do the one thing God tells us to do, that we think God just going to rain on us everything we want. And then we get mad and bent out of shape when we don't get things our way. But God is saying it takes some steps to receive what you have in me. Look at what Peter did. He told Peter, he said, first of all, get in the boat. That's step one. See, sometimes we think that if we get there, we all right. If we do the step one, then everything's going to be lovely. That he going to come back to me, that she going to come back to me, that I'm going to be the person I need to be, and I'm going to get the job I want to get, I'm going to get the house that I want to get. But God said, that's just the beginning. That's just step one. You've just done the one thing, but there's a few other things you got to do after. Y'all ain't going to talk to me on today. God says, when I tell you one thing, do that, and let me order your next step.
Yes, Lord.
See, he says, if I make you rulers over small things, y'all ain't gonna say nothing. You've got to trust God for a little more than the first thing. See, just because you came to church don't mean that everything gonna be all right when you get home. Just because you sing on the choir don't mean that everything gonna be all right when you go to work. You just done the one thing. Just because you prayed one time don't mean it's all gonna be all right. You've got to be able to follow through. God says after you get into the boat, why don't you launch out a little bit? Come on, somebody say step number 2. God says your obedience take more than just one step. You got to go a little farther in God. How far are you willing to follow after Jesus? My God, my God. How far are you willing to go? Just because now you're praying, are you ready to fast? Somebody say amen. Now that you're fasting, are you ready to go to Sunday school? Now you're in Sunday school, are you ready to go to Bible study? Y'all ain't going to talk to me on today. He says, why don't you launch out just a little while? And see, while you're out there, I'm not going to even deal with you. I'm going to deal with some other folks. Peter was sitting in the boat, and he was teaching the multitude while Peter was in the boat. Peter wasn't doing anything, just being obedient to what God said. Somebody say, be obedient. Look at somebody and say, just do it. Now, Jesus says, let's go out into the deep. Are you ready to go out into the deep with God? Yes, sir. Y'all better say something. Yeah. Are you ready to go out into the deep with the Lord? Yes. Now see, when you go out to the deep, you can't look back to the shore. You can't get out the water and swim back. Now it's you and the Lord. He dealing with you and he dealing with you in a way that there's no one else around you. Are you ready to be sanctified? Are you ready to be Holy Ghost filled? Are you ready to be set aside for the work of God? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Amen. God says, let's go out into the deep. Let me deal with you individually. Let me speak to you with no one else around. I'm going to whisper in your ear so you can hear what I have to say. Look at somebody and say, just do it. You say, well, I don't understand. Just do it. You say, well, I'm not sure. Just do it. You say, well, what if Jesus would do this? Just do it. You ought not be just looking for the blessings of God. You ought to be looking for the relationship of God. My God, my God, my God. He said, let's go out into the deep. After that, here comes the test of blessings. Now, when you're in school, you have to take a few tests before you graduate. Now, just because you pass the other tests, don't mean you won't pass the final. Somebody say amen. You might be a straight A student all through the year, but there's a final test that you have to pass. If you don't pass the final test, you got to repeat the subject again. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing. You got to do some more study. You got to do some more preparation. But this is a test of blessing. This is when your favor comes. This was when you get the certificate. This is when you graduate. You thought you graduated at the first step. You thought you graduated at the second step. God said there was a few more steps of your obedience that I needed you to pass. A few more tests I need you to get through in order for me to pour down what I want you to have. You cut short at the first step. You gave up at the first step. You threw in the towel at the first step. You did the one thing and expected God to move, but why don't you get to the end of the race to see what God has for you? There's so much in God, but sometimes we opt out because we don't get what we want automatically. We think God is a genie in the lamp. And every time we rub on the genie, God ought to provide. God says, I want you to go through a little bit. I want you to understand that I'm with you when you receive and I'm with you when you don't. You got to trust me even when you don't understand what's going on. Look at somebody and say, just do it.
Just do it.
He says, cast your net. Peter said, I tried and I failed. But at your word, I will. Oh, if we can get that attitude. If you tell me to do it, I'll do it. If you tell me to go, I'll go.
All right.
If you tell me to stay, I'll stay. I know I've failed before. I know I've let folks down before. I know I've been miserable before. But if you say, I'll do it. If you tell me to do it, I'll do it. If you just whisper it to me, Jesus, I'll do it. Look at somebody and say, just do it.
Just do it.
You've got to be enough, you got to be willing enough to the point that it hurts, that you're still willing to follow after the Lord.
Yes.
Even when you don't understand, even when you've been out of shape, even when folks talk about you, are you willing to follow after Jesus? Look at somebody and say, just do it.
Just do it.
Oh, I feel good on today. God is telling you, when you believe that it is the impossible, I'm able to do it. When you've gotten to the point that you have given up, I'm able to accomplish it. When you're at your weakest point and you failed at every opportunity, God is saying, I'm getting ready to step in.
Yes.
Peter threw that net over. Oh, that thing was awesome. Can you imagine? Oh, God. Throwing, now you done failed and you messed up and ain't nothing. And now you've gone out at the wrong time because now is not the time to catch fish. That happened last night. Now is the time to prep the fish or mend the nets. So now Jesus got you out here at an odd hour to perform something that you don't even know or believe can happen. But you have enough obedience and faith to throw the net over anyway. Anybody got that kind of faith? That they trust God beyond what they can see? That they trust God beyond what they can feel? That they're going to throw the net over anyhow? You got to have that anyhow type of faith. I don't know what God is getting ready to do. I don't know what is that. All I know is I'm going to be obedient to what he said.
That's right.
So Peter throws the net over. Pulls the net up. And in that net, so much of a catch that the boat began to sink. Oh, God. Just do it. Just do it. Now you have so much that you've got to be willing to give some away. Look at somebody and say, just do it.
Just do it.
You've got to have the obedience and faith that what you've been waiting for all this time, now you're willing to let it go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You've been toiling and trying and toiling and trying, and now you finally got what you want. Are you willing to give it up?
Yes, sir.
Can you give up what you've been praying for God?
Yeah.
Can you let it go in order to give God glory? Do you trust God enough that you're able to let go of what God blessed you with? Why? Because if you don't let it go, the blessing will be your demise. See, if God give you wisdom, but you don't share that wisdom may overtake you.
Yes.
You ever find how folks that got a whole lot of money seem to live lives that are more miserable than folks that got a whole, don't have money at all? Now I know we have all these old funny shows, these reality shows that glamorize all this foolishness. But these are the same folks in divorce court later on. These are the same folks that files bankruptcy. These are the same folks that jump out windows. These are the same folks that overdose on drugs. Now we glamorizing one thing, but we don't see the rest of the story. See, sometimes what we've been asking for, once we receive it, will cause us to sink. It'll take us out. We've been praying for money, we've been praying for houses, and now we're getting ready to get divorced. Why? Because we don't want to let go of this mortgage. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing. I would rather hold on to my BMW than to hold on to my wife. Y'all ain't gonna say nothing. God says you got to be willing to do what I asked you to do with what I bless you with. Are you able to go forth and accomplish the mission even though you've been praying for this thing so long?
Yes, sir.
God says just do it. After that, he calls the other boat over. They receive it, they glorify and magnify God. And then they follow after God. They receive the blessing. They know God is who he says he is. They don't forget. They don't get the blessing and forget that God is. They now follow after who God is. Have you ever seen, or ever been in a place where you finally get what you want, and then you forget who gave it to you? Oh, God. I know some children like that. I'm pretty sure there's no one in this church. Some children that finally get what they want, and then curse the parent that gave it. God says, now I've given you what you asked for. Are you willing to follow after me? Look at somebody and say, just do it. When you gonna make up your mind to stop just asking God for stuff and give yourself to him and follow after him? If he gave you the one time, don't you think he'll provide for you the next time? You've got to trust God beyond what you understand. Know God as a healer. Know him as a deliverer. Trust him as a provider. Look at somebody and say, just do it. Now that God has blessed you, are you willing to follow him? Now God has provided for him, are you willing to go after him? Now that God has rained on you, are you willing to make him your Lord? Look at somebody and say, just do it. Look at somebody and say, I'm ready. I'm following after him. I'm going after my God. I'm going to do what he tells me to do. I'm going to be where he wants me to be. When he tells me to preach, I'm going to preach. When he tells me to shout, I'm going to shout. When he tells me to give him glory, I'm going to give him glory. Because I'm ready and I'm willing to follow after my God. Anybody ready to run? Anybody ready to go? Anybody ready to follow after God? Look at somebody and say, just do it. Just do it. Even if your knees hurt, even if you got a headache, just do it. Trust God. Believe God. And he'll never let you down. Come on, give God some praise. You got to just do it. You got to just do it. Don't hesitate. Don't look back. Don't ask questions. Just do it. I wish I had some children at home that would just do it. I know what the Lord feels. He said I provided for them. And they just won't do nothing. I've given to them. And they just won't do nothing. I've been on their side. And they just won't do nothing. Huh? Hallelujah. He says, I'm going to keep on begging them. keep on calling. But you can make the choice right now.
Amen.
You can follow after God right now. All you've got to do is just do it. Stop talking about it. Stop saying it's coming. Stop saying I'm running from it. Just do it. God is asking you right now. Trust Him and believe Him. He's more than willing to bless you. Listen, standing all over the building if you can. If there's anyone that desires prayer,